Thank you, Dane. Good morning. Magandang umaga po sa bawat isa. At habang tinititigan ko si Pastor Daniel Servo, ay sabi ko ang aking topic ay tungkol kay Daniel. At ako ay na-impress, ako ay nahugi sa buhay ni Daniel III at patuloy na nahugi sa fellowship at sa buhay ni Daniel IV. I thank the Lord for what God has entrusted to me. When I thought about this, I've learned one lesson. The next time that when we have our meeting, I need to be present. Because if you're absent, you will be assigned to work in a particular topic. Because si Pastor John wala sa meeting, si Pastor Hansel wala naman. Oo, ako wala rin. Pero alam ko na susunod. Well, this morning, I thank the Lord for the wisdom that God has given our leadership, our speakers, and each and every one of us. How the Lord is weaving, how the Lord is, trying to connect. It's like a tapestry. Pieces of the puzzle make funny shapes, but in the end they fit together. I always say that because we know that God is at work. And last night I was surprised because we were doing a series on the Serenity Prayer that was basically ascribed to Reinhold Niebuhr. And one of the things, the section that we are about to talk last night, I was surprised because the title was, the devotion that I'm using, is God's Factory on Earth. God's Factory on Earth. The understanding of E.M. Bounds based on Philippians chapter 2 verse 13. That it is God who works in us both to do and to will, if you remember that verse. And then verse 13, I think it says, work out your own salvation with fear and with trembling. But I realized that that is a very practical and yet very theological one. That God has a factory on earth. And the factory, that God has is your life and my life. Ephesians chapter 2, 8, 9, and 10. For by grace are you saved through faith, and that not of yourselves, it is the gift of God. Verse 9, not of works lest any man should boast. Verse 10, but we are His workmanship, created in Christ Jesus unto good works, that God had before ordained that we should walk in them. So in other words, God's factory is your life and my life. We are under construction. And the only way we can know that God is working in our lives is when you and I work. You and I serve the Lord. You and I are faithful to the vocation that the Lord has given us. We can know that for sure, that God is at work when you and I persevere. Because we know that when we persevere, God is the one who is working and that His preserving power for you and for me. So, there is a lot to talk about, and I realized that this is kind of a devotion, but just allow me to just give some background. We need to take note. So I've entitled our discussion is just kind of remember the old story that we had when we were kids. And I'm sure our teachers here, yung po ating mga guro, yung po ating mga Christian educators, they have mastered probably the telling and the retelling of Daniel's story. Okay? So, and his friends. So, I just entitled this, Daniel and the Gang, Solidarity in the Workplace. Solidarity in the Workplace. Well, just a quick historical perspective. When we think about the when, ano po ang context kung kailan ito, we need to remember that the time period, the book begins in 605 BC. As the Babylonians sacked Jerusalem and took Daniel and his gang and his friends captive. And much of the rest of the book records events during the rule of Babylonian Empire, which fell to the Persians in later on in 539, approximately 539 BC. The last, dated event took place in the 3rd year of Cyrus of Persia in the mid-530s BC. Kaya, most likely, the book spans around 70 years and making Daniel an old man when he was brought to the den of lions. Medyo matanda na po siya. Imagine niyo kung kailan tumanday, saka siya nakasubok ng ganung klaseng experience. So he was thrown, he was an old man by the time he was thrown to the lions and received the final visions in the book. So I know that this book is a very challenging book. A lot of talks, a lot of pursuits, scholarly works have been done. And I just want to report to Dr. Clem, because he was wanting to see my library. Now, just last Tuesday, Pastor Clem, I was really surprised. I was so encouraged because I got a text from my friend from the post office, and he said, "You have a book." So I went there, Pastor Dan, I went there. And I got Carolyn J. Sharp's recent work on the Oxford Handbook on the Prophets. And this thick. And so I said, "Lord, I think I really have to speak on Daniel. I really have to work on." And just, I've skimmed through the book of Daniel, and there's a lot, I tell you. So, ito po ay devotion, kaya wala pong lugar siguro muna dito ang ilang mga bagay, but there has been challenging, understand, as far as the position of Daniel, na hindi po siya nakalagay sa tinatawag na Nevi'im o sa tinatawag na prophets, kundi nasa Ketuvim, but there's a lot of debate, and as far as, the half of the book, from chapters 1 through 6, and then the second half, of course, we know that medyo mahirap na yon. And then the Aramaic portion doon sa, I think there's a section there, the Aramaic portion. So, mga kapatid, what if you and I hold on to the infallibility of the Scriptures, if you and I hold on to the inerrancy of the Bible, of course, we know that there is a kind of a discussion there, no? At magandang pag-aralan yon. At tayo naniniwala na si Daniel ang sumulat ng aklat ng Daniel. At dito makita natin, naniniwala ako na just right at the beginning of Daniel, we could find how wonderfully God crafted, the words and the terms. Kaya po sa inyong mga Biblia, sundan niyo lamang po ako, bilis lamang po ito. It is interesting, look at verse 2. Tingnan po natin ang verse 2. Let me read this from another version para meron tayong comparison. Ang sabi po dyan, "And the Lord delivered Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand, along with some of the articles from the temple of God. These he carried off to the temple of his God in Babylonia, and put in the treasure house of his God." Now, dito pa lamang, makita na agad natin, tayo mga naniniwala sa sovereignty ng Panginoon. Nakita natin from the first day, from the life of Joseph, and then yesterday, from the life of Nehemiah, how God has been sovereignly orchestrating and working even above and above the affairs of men according to His purpose. Now, take note, just remember, now, in the Hebrew perspective, ito pong salitang delivered, how Daniel crafted wonderfully this understanding. Later on, when we see Daniel excelling, when we see Daniel flourishing as a man of God together with his friends, at the end of the day, we could see how God is the one being triumphant in working all these things according to His purpose. If I may say, according to His imperial purpose and will. Kaya imagine niyo, nasa empire po. Kaya ang salitang empire ngayon ay isa pong, although matagal na nagsimula, marami pong mga usap-usapin pag sinabing the understanding of empire. Even in the New Testament, ano ang nangyari kapag merong puwersa, kapag merong force, kapag merong empire na sumakop sa isang land. I remember Stanley Hauer once in his book, we are all, as Christians, we are all resident aliens. Tayo po ay mga resident aliens. Tama po ba? Tayo mga anak ng Diyos. And so we're working here. Hindi po tayo mismo para dito, but at the same time, we want to excel in our lives here on earth. Pero meron po tayong tinatawag na mas better future, and that is when our lives are molded according to the will of the Lord, and when we will be with Him. So in verse 2, okay, that is basically the understanding of the word Natan in Hebrew. Ang ibig lang sabihin ay, it is glossed in the meaning of to give, okay? Pag sinabing, kaya Nathan, ang ibig sabihin ng Nathan ay to give, okay? Dito sa verse 2, nakakubli ang kaisipan, nakatago. The understanding of given is somewhat hidden here in verse 2, and it reads, delivered. Look at verse 9. Tingnan niyo po ang verse 9. Verse 9, now God had caused, okay? Now God had caused the official to show favor and compassion to Daniel. Okay, so now God has caused basically the same thing. In the ESV, it is rendered as, and God gave. So ESV captures the meaning of to give. So ang sabi dyan, and God gave. And look at verse 17. Verse 17. To these 4 young men, God gave. God gave knowledge and understanding of all kinds of literature and learning. And Daniel could understand visions and dreams of all kinds. So we could find there na sa likod ng achievement, sa likod ng pag-excel, sa likod, behind the excelling, these 4 beautiful gentlemen, Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, sa kabila ng mga attempts, for them to be brainwashed and to be acculturated, or to be, sabi natin, to be forced to accept the Babylonian culture and the Babylonian understanding, mga kapatid, sila po ay nag-excel. So in the midst of force, in the midst of the imperialistic Babylonian leadership, sila po ay nag-excel. Now, of course, we all know, I remember in our Sunday school, yung mga pangalan nitong mga taong ito, just a quick, reminder. Daniel, ang kanyang meaning ay God is my judge, pero pinalitan ng Belteshazzar. Okay? Alam natin na ang kahulugan ay Bel's prince, of course, or Nebo, protect his life. Alam natin na ito may kinalaman sa tinatawag na Babylonian deities or gods. So, ibig sabihin, talagang para ibahin ang focus, ibahin ang mentality, ibahin ang tinatawag na conviction, ibahin ang pananaw sa buhay, ibahin ang worldview sa buhay. You see the attempts? And of course, we know that Hananiah, the meaning is Yahweh has been gracious, pero pinalitan sa Shadrach. Ang ibig sabihin ng Shadrach ay the command of Aku, again, another deity. Mishael, okay, na ang ibig sabihin ay, who is like God? Naging Meshach, ang ibig sabihin, who is like Aku? Okay, at ang pangalan na Azariah, Yahweh has helped, okay, naging Abednego, na ang ibig sabihin ay the servant of Nebo. Mga kapatid, wala rin po tayong pinagkaiba sa kanila. Right now, we are in this fallen world, and yet, the more we understand God who is sovereign, who is working above us, that God is a factory, ang factory ng Panginoon ay ikaw at ako, we're still under construction, we're not yet done. So makita po natin dito, itong mga salitang delivered, God had caused, and God gave, and then verse 17, and God gave knowledge and understanding of all kinds of literature and learning. Mga kapatid, God is indeed at work. Hindi niya hinayaan, hindi niya pinabayaan sina Daniel at ang kanyang mga friends to wander, to just meander, na walang tinatawag na layunin at purpose sa kanilang mga buhay. Now, there's another thing, okay, dito po sa chapter 1, another Hebrew term na ginamit po dito sa chapter 1, ay ang tinatawag na, if you look at verse 5, tignan niyo po, let's go back to verse 5. Ang sabi ng verse 5, the king, take note, the king assigned, itong mga salitang ito ay punong-puno ng trabaho, You see, God, okay, delivered, okay, God had caused, and God gave, okay? God gave knowledge. And then in verse 5, you will find, tingnan nyo, who's the one doing the action here? Ang sabi ng verse 5, the king, verse 5, the king assigned. The king assigned them a daily amount of food and wine from the king's table. They were to be trained for 3 years, and after that they were to enter the king's service. Ibang klase ang training. Ang pinakamalulupit, gusto natin yung term na malupit, no? Pet malu, okay? Ang pinakamalulupit na mga kabataan at mga mag-aaral, ipadala natin dito. Kunin natin sila, dali natin sila dito. At bibigyan natin sila ng ating produkto, the best of the best. So imagine niyo, nagkaroon ng tinatawag na parang paglalaban. Ang tinatawag na the best of worlds. The best of worlds as far as, Judaism and at the same time, Babylonian culture. Pero ang lahat ng ito, we find that God is sovereign, that God is the one really working under control ang lahat ng mga bagay. Now, here you will find that the word assigned, okay, just to give you a hint, sapagkat pagdating ng tinatawag na yung medyo mahirap na talata, lalo na ang handwriting on the wall, you will find and you will realize na ito pong salitang ito, okay, and this is Hebrew, at ito po ay ginamit ni Daniel na ang salita ay mana. Okay? Mana. Tingnan nyo mana. It is to count or to appoint. So in other words, in verse 5, the king assigned them a daily amount of food. In other words, okay, tinignan nila, tumataong to, we will try to assign and to really purposely, ikaw ba naman pakainin ka ng the best of the best? Ano kaya? Andiyan na yung food, talagang nilalagay na. Masarap din siguro ang pagkain ng Babylonian food, palagay ko. At lalo na kapag pagkain ng hari. Di ba? At talaga namang siguro pagka tayo napagod sa basketball, pag nakita natin talaga, opa, di ba? Talagang kain. Pero the best of the best ay tinapat sa kanila. All kinds of learning and all kinds of perspectives tinapat sa... Kasi mga matatalino Paano mo i-brainwash ang mga taong matatanda? How could you ever brainwash, those who are intelligent people coming from Judah, children of Judah? Ditapatan mo ng mas, okay, in the pretense of mas malupit na pananaw. Mga kapatid, I think 2 years ago, at Asian Theological Forum, merong tinatawag na term na ginamit pa ulit-ulit, and that is what we call liminal Christianity. Pag sinabing liminal, ito yung sinasabi ni Pastor Dan, pagkatapos ng Sunday, okay? Pagkatapos ng Sunday, magmula Lunes hanggang Sabado, ano ka? Ano tayo? Ano yung tinatawag na connection? Now, here we find the children of Judah, itong mga beautiful gentlemen, sila po ay may malalim na ugat when it comes to the glory and the beauty of Judaism. Diniscuss ni Dr. Clement na tawag na Shema. In fact, yan ay inaawit. Tama yung sinabi ni Dr. Clem na sa mga Hebrew books nila, malalaki ang salitang to hear and to obey. Okay? Alala niyo, di ba't may kanta pa nga yun? Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. My Hebrew students, tinuruan ko silang kumanta ng ilang mga Hebrew songs. Alam niyo, napaka-powerful ang isang soldier dying sa kanyang pakikipaglaban. Talagang he would confess something, just like the Shema. Ibig sabihin ng kanyang allegiance, ipapakita niya na sa dulo ng kanyang buhay, sasabihin niya na siya ay talagang he would confess that and he would be identified. So, the king assigned in verse 5. Look at verse 10. Tignan niyo po verse 10. But the official told Daniel, I am afraid of my lord the king, who has assigned. Okay, again, the same thing. It sounds mana. Ibig sabihin, who has assigned in verse 10. So, here we find, ito pong opisyalis, ang sabi niya, but the official told Daniel, I am afraid, ako'y may pangamba of my lord the king, who has assigned your food and drink. Why should he see you looking worse than the other men your age? The king would then have my head because of you. Pero alam natin ang kwento na patunayan nila, sabi nila, no, because that from the heart of hearts, ang sabi nila ni Daniel at saka ng mga friends, we are convinced, we are convicted, and this is our commitment, this is our conviction. We want to work and we want to live, we want to redeem the time. Gusto naming makita ang aming buhay dito ayon sa kalooban ng Panginoon. Kaya hindi ho sila. They were not and they did not actually succumb to those things. Now again, look at verse 11. Daniel then said to the guard, okay, just in continuity, Daniel then said to the guard, whom the chief official, take note, had appointed. Had appointed. That is basically the same word. Had appointed. You see in verse 5, in verse 10, in verse 11, had appointed. So makita natin dito that the imperialistic appointments and assignments were actually done. Nakita po natin dito na talagang mabigat. How would you feel if you are doing your best and you were estimated as, you know, one of the best, and you are given this talaga namang cutting edge training, and you will be rubbing shoulders with the high officials, and then you would say, I understand. Nagkakaintindihan kayo when it comes to the technicality on how to work on the administration of the empire, and yet biglang may hugot at sasabihin, may mangyayari na, sige, bigyan yan. Basta bigyan sila ng dapat na gawin. Pagka hindi, biglang pagtitwist. Biglang magkakaroon ng pagbabago. Okay, imagine niyo, nangyari iyon sa mga kaibigan nung sinabi nilang, hindi kami luluhod, hindi kami sasamba. Eh, merong consequence. Merong mangyayari. Imagine niyo, sila'y binigyan ng mataas na katungkulan ng iyan. Merong struggle every day on how to work, on how to live according, to the calling that the Lord has given them. Now, after Daniel chapter 1, ito pong understanding na assigning and appointing, okay? This concept or this word no longer appears in the book, but it appears in the Aramaic form. In the Aramaic cognate. Yun yung tinatawag na tunog lang is mena. Okay, so the one is mana, this one is mena. Ang ibig lang sabihin ay, okay, para siyang binago, and it occurs, okay, 3 times. Now, tingnan niyo po. Chapter 2, verse 24. Okay? Chapter 2, verse 24. Then Daniel went to Arioch, whom the king had appointed. Okay? Now, from the Hebrew perspective, at ngayon, nagkaroon ng tinatawag na pagbabago. Ang sabi po dyan, whom the king had appointed to execute the wise men of Babylon, and said to him. Now, who's the one doing this? We see. Ang sabi dyan, the king had appointed. Okay? Another one is in verse 49, chapter 2, verse 49. Ang sabi ng verse 49, moreover, at Daniel's request, the king appointed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, administrators over the province of Babylon, and Daniel himself remained at the royal court. You see, that same word. And then in chapter 3, verse 12, ang sabi doon, but there are some Jews whom you have set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, mga opisyales, mga Hudyo, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who pay no attention to you, your majesty. They neither serve your gods, nor worship the image of gold you have set up. Alam natin ang kwento. Okay? So in other words, the same understanding. King Nebuchadnezzar, okay, appoints or assigns and thereby controls everything in the empire. And the last occurrence is in chapter 5, verse 26. Chapter 5, verse 26. Ang sabi po dyan, chapter 5, verse, do you remember this? The handwriting on the wall? Here is what these words mean. Mene, God has numbered the days of your reign and brought it to an end. Tekel, you have been weighed on the scales and found wanting. Pairs, your kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and Persians. You see? So nakita po natin, here in Daniel chapter 5, we have the famous handwriting on the wall. And, some biblical scholars would say na mga salitang yon ay mga units of currency or money. Mina, shekel, okay? Shekel and a half, okay? Here, the understanding of mina is the Aramaic word, actually, na nakita natin. But Daniel, okay, connects it by means of a wordplay. Okay, so here we find God has numbered. That is the meaning in chapter 5, verse 26. God has numbered the days of your reign and brought it to an end. Mga minamahal, in this final appearance, God is the subject of the verb. God has numbered. And it appears in a judgment speech against the king of Babylon. In other words, mga kapatid, the understanding of this is very rich in theological understanding in the book of Daniel. Now, here's the point. Saan ka man naroroon, anuman ang trabaho mo, anuman ang iyong field, anuman ang iyong pinagkakaabalahan, nakita mo minsan na wala kang magagawa. Nakita mo minsan na mahirap tanggapin ang mga bagay. Of course, hindi ko sinasabi na you will be there for the rest of your life. And in many ways, God is working. And Proverbs 16 verse 33, the lad is cast into the lap, but the whole disposing thereof is of the Lord. But here's the point. The king of Babylon may assign, you see, it's a work, may assign food and drink to his Hebrew captives, and he may appoint royal officials throughout his world and throughout his kingdom. But in the end, it is the God of Israel who numbers his days. It is the God of Israel who is in full control of everything. So Daniel and his friends, okay, actually this can go back then to further chapters. Ito pong si Daniel at ang kanyang mga kaibigan, they were united. They had this solidarity in their workplace. Okay? Sapagkat, now, they were brought to this, to this exile, at nariyan po sila, controlled by another force, pero sila ay merong pananaw, which is also forceful. Kapag kayo may paniniwala, meron kang tinatawag na conviction. Now, in the book of Daniel and in other apocalyptic literature, interpretation, vision, and literary creation, they are acts. They are works. Ibig sabihin, yun ay trabaho to interpret. It's really a hard work. Okay, God is the one giving the wisdom, vision, and literary action. So the blending of God, His sovereignty, at ito pong responsibility ng tao. But they were united. They had solidarity in resistance. Mga kapatid, tingnan nyo parang si Joseph, parang may kasama rin siguro siya. I'm not sure, pero baka meron. Si Nehemiah, palagay ko baka meron ding mga nandyan lang na hindi nabanggit. But here we find Daniel and his gang, Daniel and his friends. Now, what happens is, kapag ikaw at may mga kasama ka mga Christians sa tinatawag na workplace, ano kaya ang pwedeng maging epekto nun sa isang kumpanya? Kaya pala mamaya, bibigyan tayo ng ilang pananaw, okay, halimbawa sa isang korporasyon, kahapon, si Ginoong Bartolo, nakita natin na gusto niyang manatili ang Bible studies. Now, here's his confession. Lord, kung tatanggalin mo, if you would do away, if you remove the Bible study, Lord, I pray that you will remove this company. It was such a daring kind of what we call resistance. Why? Because the world, naglit tayo sa mundo, nire-resist ng iba. Magpapadala ba tayo? So, Daniel and his gang, they had a solidarity and resistance. Refusal. So, ito palang kanilang ginagawa, ito palang kanilang trabaho, ang kanilang conviction when they say, no, it's fine. They are doing something. When you do that, they are together in this resistance. solidarity and resistance, solidarity and encouragement. Naalala yung sila itatapo na? Di ba? Sabi, ano kaya usapan nila tatlo, no? Brad, eto na. Eto na ating huling hininga. Okay, so, tanong. Okay, so would you like to change your mind? I'm just, storytelling, okay, para sa ating, magbabago po tayo? Let's change our minds. What do you think? No, of course not. And then sabi nila, meron kaming Diyos na kaya niya kaming iligtas. Pero kung hindi man, di ba? Ibang klase yun. Pero kung hindi man, we will still not worship. It was solidarity in a kind of resistance in the workplace. Pwedeng mangyari yan. Pwedeng magkaroon ng solidarity and resistance. Pwedeng gamitin ng Panginoon to. Okay? Now, again, I'm not trying to be radical here, but that's the reality. Okay? Gamitin natin ang salitang resistance in the best sense of it. To resist is to refuse to make a witness. Resist solidarity and encouragement. So, they encourage one another, itong friends, itong mga magkakaibigan. Now, question. Kamusta ang ating friendship sa loob ng ating workplace? Kamusta ang friendship? Tumitibay ba? Pastor, laglagan po eh. Diba? Laglagan, tapos, di ba? Tinatapakan. Okay? Tapakan ko siya para ako ay umangat. Mga kapatid, nangyayari. At nung in-evaluate, okay, ng leader o kaya ng CEO, kayo talaga, nalaman ka naman kayong nag-BBS, So there was the solidarity and resistance, solidarity and encouragement, and solidarity in hope. Mga kapatid, the hope that we have is indeed a hopeful word. Mga kapatid, in 1 Peter, I like Dr. Clem's emphasis last graduation. Ang sabi niya, because of the hope that we have in Christ, because of the hope that we have in the resurrected Christ, our hope becomes like an attention grabber to many of today's observers. Nakaka-attract ng attention. And so as I close, the prophetic knowledge and power aim to disrupt. But they were not rastos, hindi po sila yung mga bastos, no. But their commitment, ang kanilang pananaw, ang kanilang paniniwala, bagamat kumukontra sa tinatawag na imperialistic understanding ng Babylon, idolatrous, okay? Disrupt and deny, ito pong tinatawag na idolatrous understanding ng empire. Now, mga kapatid, God is in full control. Mga kapatid, let me close with this. Mahaba po sana, kaya lang may, sabi ni Pastor Willie, hi. Okay? Now, can I request everyone to please rise? And shall we pray? And let me lead you in this serenity prayer. Ipikit po natin ang ating mga mata. At ito po ang panalangin. Shall we pray? Lord, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace, taking as Jesus did this sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, trusting that you will make all things right if I surrender to your will so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with you forever in the next. Amen and amen. Thank you, mga kapatid.